Well, welcome to the breakout session. This is called, as you can see, Residents' Rights. And so my name is Brandy Dellenbach. I am the care navigator here at HD Reach. Today we're really going to talk about residents' rights in long-term care. And of course, if you guys have questions, we have a small group. Feel free to speak up, ask any questions, or interject at any time. We have an awesome group of people up here presenting today. So I'm going to hand it off to them, and they're going to do a quick introduction, and then we'll jump right in, okay?
Hey everyone, I'm Kay Castillo. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit here in North Carolina called Friends of Residents in Long-Term Care, where we provide education, advocacy, and support. So we try to help people navigate long-term care, understand what their rights are, understand that they do have rights, and then we also advocate with lawmakers and state leaders to help bring the voices of residents and their families to policy decisions as well.
All right, hey, good afternoon. My name's DeHaven. So the last session, we talked a little bit about, for those of you who weren't here, about the process of placement into a care community. This one kind of hopefully can provide some insight into after the placement. My wife, Heather, has Huntington's, diagnosed in around 2016 or 17, and 2 children at risk. So that's kind of my involvement with this community, but definitely fully integrated into the long-term care community, the placement process, and hopefully I can help out with some of those decisions if you need to make them.
And I'm Angela Woodard. I am a long-term care ombudsman, and that's just a fancy term for, I don't even know if that's fancy or not, but it's an advocate. I'm an advocate for residents, and my specific area is Wake County nursing homes and Lee County nursing homes. We also serve 6 other counties, and have 4 co-workers that are also long-term care ombudsmen that serve those counties. So I guess that's it, right? All right, y'all have a good afternoon. And,
Thank you for coming.
thank you for coming.
Yeah.
So this session is about resident rights, and that's exactly what I'm tasked to do. Is to help our residents if their rights have been violated. And, you know, I actually have a handout here. Not sure what you may or may not know about resident rights, and if anyone other than Grant right now has any loved ones that may be in a nursing home or adult care home, then what's being passed out right now, basically there are federal mandates that require nursing homes to have, and adult care homes, but that's more state, but these resident rights, which you'll probably need some magnifying glasses there to see them, that should be posted in every facility. For nursing homes, they are, it's federally mandated, these rights. It was pulled down from the CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. For assisted living facilities, it's more with the state, you know, that they are regulated or somewhat regulated, I believe. You had mentioned in the last that that some of the, Melissa, some of the facilities are like Wild Wild West, and that's kind of what assisted livings are for me in my area, if you will. So I was just thinking that if y'all have questions or anything, but I just thought we could just go over a few, and I can tell you a couple of them that I get a lot of phone calls from, and just kind of go from there, and we can just.
Yeah, and we've got them, you want to start with nursing home?
Yeah.
Okay. They're slightly different for nursing home and assisted living, and that's mostly just because of what Angela said, that nursing homes are kind of more federally controlled, and assisted living or adult care homes are more state controlled. So they're slightly different, but they're still, I mean, they're still pretty much the same.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think one of the things that I would, if you find yourself or a loved one getting ready to go into a facility, and again, or to a community, I know that one of the things is to know who the contact is. Who is the main person there that you might be in touch with a lot of times. So, for example, if you find yourself or a loved one going into a nursing home, one of the things that you might want to go ahead and get done is to have a conversation or a care plan. Actually, that's mandated that you do have a care plan within, I think, is it first 48 hours or 72 hours? And so where you are having that conversation about their role, as well as expectations and things of that nature. So regardless if you're coming in for short-term or long-term, it's a good time initially to meet with meet with the team that's going to be providing care for you, and so that knowing, just for them to know your face, your who's supporting you, your advocate. It's really important to get those goals down and just try to have a clear understanding of expectations between both. But let's see. If you take a look at one of the first ones there is to be treated with consideration and respect. And full recognition of personal dignity and individually, and that's a small sentence, but it has large implications. And I think that a lot of times people get used to being in like with staff and residents, that you. Sometimes for staff, it's a job, right? And so they may forget some of the times that's their home. That residence, that's their home. And for example, one of the things that they're supposed to do is a knock on the door before going in, even if the door's open. So just things like that, to be able to call the person by a name that they want, whether versus, sugar or honey. Now, they might want you to call them sugar or honey. Some people are not put off by that, but some people are, and so it's about that respect and just really having an understanding between that about your individual choices and things of that nature. Anything you want to say about that, or and I think that one of the things that I often get called about is the overall care that needs to be that needs to be better, for lack of better words. And I can remember at one point talking with a resident and her mother where she was being changed, and the door was open, and they weren't providing her with the courtesy that needed to be that she needed. The door needed to be shut, and the curtains need to be pulled. But so that was one of the issues that we had. And we often have to go in and have conversations and really try to come to an understanding, or about expectations and things of that nature. Let's see.
I wonder if you could speak to a call that we get sometimes, or like that comes up a lot, is we've had this care plan. During that care plan, I let my team know that I am a night owl. I'm not, but I'm a night owl. I like to take my showers at night. I like to stay up late. I like to watch my programs, and then I like to sleep in the morning. And they followed that for a little while, but then we got new staff, and now they wake me up to get my shower at 6 a.m. and that's actually a residence rights violation, that, that you are allowed to take your shower when, you need that.
Right.
When you've expressed that and it's in your care plan and it's in your individuality plan, that kind of respect for somebody who, it's like, so they followed it for a little while, change of staff, now they don't follow it.
Right. Yeah, and it's that plan of care. I think that, and that's really important, because having that plan of care, if it's in there, then that definitely should be followed. And I think that at times when new staff may come on, the feedback that we would always get or have gotten is that, staff needs to be educated, and that seems to happen a lot. Even if it's regular staff, they still need to be educated on residents' preferences and things of that nature. It's typically there are certain shower days, so knowing that, what are your shower days? Is it 3 days a week? Is it, what does the resident want? But then you have what they want and their rights, but then you also have reality, because you've got staff calling out, you've got staff, perhaps not having the time to do that, and so if that occurs ongoing, a lot of times those two are the calls that that I might get, and a lot of times when we have those conversations, I'll bring in the director of nursing, I'll bring in the administrator, because if I'm involved, then the buck typically needs to stop with the administrator, and so that's why I want him or her there, as well as the director of nursing. So, sorry, my mouth is getting dry.
Yeah, I'll say one thing with the education piece. So that's something that we encountered, obviously. I mean, Huntington's is a complex disease, and obviously, we expected that a lot of these young nursing assistants, the CNAs, nursing assistants, wouldn't really have a background in it, which, we give them some grace for that ultimately. But we went and maximized our use of like HD Reach that provided in-service training. So I kind of, with the director of nursing, who's a huge advocate, I mean, I have her on text message whenever we need to coordinate something as Heather's symptoms evolve, and ultimately whenever there's new staff that comes in, because it is, I mean, that is an expectation that you'll just kind of have this little bit of revolving door with some of the younger staff members, but to have them be on a continuous training plan. So just being an advocate for that, especially if your loved one's in a care community and maybe the only person with Huntington's, is that say, hey, HD Reach provides this. And I know Erica here at HD Reach, she came within a week and provided all the new staff. And the staff would literally walk. I participated in one session, and it was amazing. Just an amazing session of the overview from a simplistic standpoint to someone who has no experience with HD, of how HD works and what they should understand what they'll be dealing with the care. But then ultimately now it's like we talk with the director of nursing. It's like, okay, looks like we got to get in-service back in, and they immediately schedule it. So they're very proactive about knowing that they don't have all the answers with Huntington's, and they have to evolve as Heather's care changes. But the in-service training is critical with Huntington's.
Yeah, and I think that you are going to be your biggest advocate. Your loved one is going to be your biggest advocate. And again, the calls that may come in, it's they range from, well, why isn't this supposed to be done? Shouldn't they, why don't they know that X needs to happen? But really, because of staff changes and just things like, and that is a real situation. You are going to be the biggest advocate for yourself and for your loved one, and it's and just getting to know the core team, and the hope is that that if the administrator remains the same, a lot of times it will be maybe certified nursing assistants. Maybe you're trying to go off to get their own nursing degrees and move on. but many times, those folks change a lot. So additional education, always staff education is what you hear, and it can be, it can certainly be frustrating. I think that, go ahead.
Hello. I was wondering, of course, you mentioned that your loved one would be your best advocate, but unfortunately, there are some of us who, are alone in this world. And especially when you are vulnerable or, you are prey to dementia, you won't be able to advocate for yourself the way that you would if you were, fully within your faculties. So, like, what recourse is there for those individuals, and how can we make sure that our rights are being honored when we don't have someone to step up to the plate for us?
So, you're saying that you don't have a case scenario, there's no one advocating for you, no family or no one coming by there. That is often the case, more so than it needs to be all across, not just in North Carolina, but you hear it, those, especially when sad situations that come up that you hear about nursing homes and things that happen in nursing homes or assisted livings. Ideally, when the Ombudsman program was first initiated, a lot of our task was to do friendly visits and to have the opportunity to go and chat with folks and meet residents. In addition, in North Carolina, we also have community advisory committees that are tasked with, these are volunteers that are trained, that go into these facilities, that are, laying eyes on folks, on residents and things of that nature, and do interview our residents, and can certainly see if there are issues that perhaps need, addressing. Realistically, they're not there every day. They don't meet the same people every day. They may not get to Hall 200 where you are, or somebody, likewise, the Ombudsman, the friendly visits they don't happen anymore because of the overwhelming complaints and things like that. Again, this is, you're going where you're needed at that time. So those friendly visits aren't happening. With that being said, it goes back to, hopefully there, again, for nursing homes, there are, the social worker that is supposed to be advocating, for residents, and many do, certainly, and that are there every day and seeing those things. But I don't know of a...
So let's say you've gone into long-term care, you still have your cognitive ability, let's just say you're in there for some physical reasons. Excuse me. As your cognitive abilities start to decline, administrative staff may even go to the point of guardianship, so that you have that person there who fights for your rights, who helps you make medical decisions and that type of thing. So if you have no support, ultimately you could have a guardian to help you with those things and advocate for you.
That's
When you say administration, do you mean administration of the...
I mean, of the facility, your administrator, your director of nursing, and your social worker. These are going to be your main three.
Okay. Okay, I understand the social worker is separate from the nursing facility in the sense that, the social worker doesn't get paid from the facility itself, but wouldn't the director of nursing and the head of the facility be employed by the facility itself? What I'm saying is, I don't know how unbiased they would be or how much of a vested interest they would have in protecting your rights.
It wouldn't, the guardian wouldn't come from the nursing home, and the hope would be, before you would even get to guardianship, that you would be able to have a friend, if you don't have family, prior to getting, that would be a last, yeah, that perhaps you would appoint somebody, someone to be a power of attorney, a healthcare power of attorney, that can make those decisions for you. But it wouldn't come for, if it did go to guardianship, the facility would not be the guardian. It would go to the social services, and they would be the ones that would appoint a guardian. I'm sorry.
I see.
No, looking at it, trying to look at it through that particular lens, that scenario, if you're going within, or if you're going in or within already that community, and then you don't have an advocate out there, no family. I mean, thinking about that, just kind of first time I've ever looked at it from that perspective, which is huge. I would say, again, we talked about the social worker. To me, I'm looking at the care facility my wife's in. I know we have a very proactive social worker. Now, they are, to my understanding, employed by the community. They work on behalf of the community, but I believe also there's an accountability chain. So somehow, at some point, when you're able to sort of still set up your care plan, and if you're concerned about that, to me, I guess the way I would probably pursue it as an option is activate that social worker to be your advocate, but then make sure somebody outside the facility, probably your bundsman is then activated to say, hey, we have this one particular situation, and maybe she will then keep a special eye on the accountability of the social worker doing that on your behalf, just to make sure that you do have that third party outside that's keeping an eye on that chain, if you will. So that's kind of what
I think that's helpful.
That is a hard scenario.
I think that's helpful. And then just one more question too. The community advocacy groups who do the visits to various facilities, are their visits announced or are they surprise visits? Okay,
No.
I just wanted to.
Yeah.
They have to be surprised. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I serve on one in my county, and you just kind of go with your team, and you announce yourself while you're there, and then you just go around. And we actually have like a check sheet of what we're asking residents about and what we're looking for. And if there's a problem, then we call our ombudsman and say, you were seeing stuff, and then those reports actually go to the county as well. So the county hopefully sees them.
And I know in the care community, Heather's they actually have a residency committee, and they have a lot of power. I mean, those residents get together and they don't like something, they're able to activate and move that staff. So they have power in numbers. So ultimately, you kind of have that internal residency committee as well, along with the outside. So there's multiple layers of advocacy going on there.
So that's a great segue into one of the rights for residents is resident councils. And this is their ability to meet in private without staff kind of being present. And this is a tool that we always say, this is an advocacy tool for you as a resident to have this space to come together and talk about, what's going on, what you might need help with, what you're struggling with. Sometimes they'll bring in outside speakers, so they might bring in someone from HD Reach to say, this is what I'm, the work that I'm doing and how I live here and all that stuff. But it is, for nursing homes, it is federally required, and then it is required here at the state as well. And adult care homes are also state law have to have resident council. So we have a manual. It's on our website, but I've got some printed copies down at our table too, that kind of help set up, strengthen resident councils, like their sample bylaws, sample taking minutes. And there's also kind of references to the federal law about resident councils. And community has to announce that there's a resident council and where and what time they're meeting. And in the same vein is the right to family councils. And so family councils are also really powerful tools for family members to kind of have a network and work with other, like sometimes like caregiver support type stuff. They might have programs about like medication management, or having the ombudsman come in and talk to them about rights and things like that. So, yeah. So.
Anybody else? Does anybody else have any questions?
I don't really have a question. I think it's more some comments and feedback to a couple different things that I've heard during this session. Grant had mentioned earlier about in-service training, and that kind of goes back with yours as well. Making sure the staff is trained appropriately to handle Huntington's, right? Making sure that they're educated, the staff. Yes, there is turnover, we know, in these facilities, but we can come in. It's free. Reach out to us. We can go in and train these facilities. So that is a free service that we offer. It's in-service training. If you are looking at a facility or you have someone in a facility, reach out to us. We'll be glad to do that and get that scheduled. And kind of to follow along with that is community. We talked about this earlier, identifying your care team. I'm not sure of the situation in your case, but identifying who's out there, my community. If you are alone, that would be something to think about. Who do I need to talk to? I need to get involved in this community and meet people. This is a very wonderful community full of love and plenty of people to support. We have meetups in person, these events, coming around, talking to people, building that network up before those things arise. So you do have that advocate. So you have those people in your corner saying, okay, I know who I can reach out to, having that number, having those contacts. So building community and making sure you know who your care team is before that occurs. So I think it's really important, education and awareness, and being able to know who I can talk to, where they're at, and when. So not really a question, just kind of some feedback about things. Any questions over here? Okay.
So do not take this personally, okay, when I ask you a question about the quality of ombudsmen, because you are obviously dedicated to your job. But I also know that that's a federally funded program, correct? And therefore, you probably answer to somebody within your county or state who then answers on that. My question is, can I count on that my ombudsman in Timbuktu, no man's land, is going to have the same dedication to his or her job that you do? Is there a level of expectation for all of you across the country? Does that make sense?
Across the country, I would think so. Of course, like in any situation, any career or job, you're going to have those that are more dedicated than not. One of the things that it's hard for me to let go is if I know that a family member is struggling or a resident is struggling, and they need this or they need that, and it's not supposedly in my purview. I go there with them because, like you were saying, the phone numbers, the this person that you got to call, that person that you got to call. When you're a resident lying in a bed, and I can tell you story after story about rabbit holes that I've gone down with folks, just because I mean it's hard to not to go there, right? I mean, because so I don't know. I think that across North Carolina there are a lot of great ombudsmen. We come together probably 4 times a year for meetings and things of that nature. We have state trainings. There is a state ombudsman in North Carolina. Other ombudsman programs across the United States, I really can't speak to those. I know that some are volunteers that are trying to do the things that we do, getting paid. So I think the want, the love, the whatever is there. It's a matter of just getting a lot of times getting to that particular phone call or whatever, and it can be, as I was saying earlier, we used to do friendly visits, and we didn't do it because it was before my time that we supposedly did friendly visits. But the population, it is just it's a different time now. It's a different time, and more advocacy is needed. Just there's no.
One of the
about
things that we've advocated for as a nonprofit is the ombudsman to resident ratio is outrageous.
Yeah.
And so we've advocated for more state funding to hire more Angelas across the state so that they can get to all these calls. And we've also been advocated for, like, sometimes people will call us and say, well, I tried to call the ombudsman, but they didn't call me back. So then I'll say, well, with your permission, can I reach out to them? And so I'll say, Miss Melissa called. She's having some trouble, and, could you call her back? And then, I haven't had to do this in a long time, but, like, I don't hear back from her. So then I'll go to the state and say, Miss Melissa has been calling, we need some help for her, kind of based on what it is.
Absolutely.
And adult care homes have ombudsman, but they can also go to DSS. So some folks at DSS can always come in if.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that. There is a state, again, I can only speak to North Carolina. There is a state ombudsman, and certainly if you feel like that you're not getting, the assistance there, then, you can certainly always reach out to the state. And there's a new state ombudsman. Her name is Renee Key. She used to be an ombudsman. And so she's coming at it from that standpoint too. So.
And if you're not in North Carolina, you could probably just look up like your state and long-term care ombudsman. But there are some national like the National Consumer Voice. They have an ombudsman center, so you can try to locate who that is if you're not here in North Carolina.
Just from the angle of having a loved one in the care community with Huntington's, there will be bumps in the road. That's one thing that was very apparent from the beginning. Is we did not expect that the staff was going to be educated immensely on Huntington's. So we knew there was going to be some growing pains in understanding this disease. And really, you look for that adaptability. For me, it was from the beginning. It's like I know from the beginning it was going to be kind of tough, and seeing how adaptable they were to things as they changed, and then giving them some grace, because the staff, I mean, to me, these people should make $400,000 a year. They don't make the money they should make. They work hard hours, unappreciated. And just a little bit of a story. I was with the director of nursing, who's a huge advocate, like I said, on our behalf, who was in there with me one day. We were visiting with Heather, and she was just taking message after message of complaints. And, it's all scalable based on loved ones anywhere. We all kind of are reactive in different ways. And there are those that she deals with on a daily basis for things that are relatively not big deals. So I've learned through time to give as much grace as possible. There are occasionally there are things I'm like, we've got to deal with that today. That person is no longer until they're trained. There's not a lot, but ultimately, kind of letting the little things that aren't really say, hey, look, that's just a training issue. I told the director of nursing, okay, just you can handle that. So just kind of giving that grace and not making it this overt reactive complaint. So just kind of giving that grace before I activate all these mechanisms because. I have heard people say, it's like, well, if I make a complaint and I'm worried my loved one, there's going to be intimidation. I haven't felt that at all. I feel like there's the advocacy on my behalf in the facility through the players that are there on our behalf is excellent. So I haven't felt like any complaint that is made is not taken care of immediately. But just kind of as a loved one, understanding that with Huntington's. And I think we talked about a little bit before. I mean, really one goal that I have and one thing I would love is see more care communities in the state, actually a care community in the state that actually is dedicated to Huntington's, just like they do in Connecticut with Fresh River and in Illinois, where they get funded and through medical networks, not necessarily through the state. That would be huge in North Carolina. But until we get there, just anticipate that someone who goes into a care community is probably going to be one of potentially with Huntington's, and just understanding there's going to be some growing pains, but activate the team to get the advocacy in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wish that I will say that retaliation is a real thing, and I'm glad to hear those things. There is concern about if you raise questions, or if you're complaining that that there is some maybe passive things that happen. And again, I really would love to capture other moments than what I capture, but again, that's the nature of the job, and so I really would love to again just capture different parts than what I do. And but I do know that in the many cases and the many people that I've talked to, that is one of the things that they are concerned about. It is against the law to retaliate.
Number 11. Number 11.
So, and with that, we my position is certainly not, and I tell residents and families, my position when we have a conversation, I'm not going in there blazing by any means. My goal is to kill them with kindness. And then whatever the resident tells me, how they want me to handle things, because, they are my client, and I know that at the end of the day, I get to walk out, whereas, they don't. So I'm very, matter of fact, the ombudsmen are the only ones that I know of that aren't mandated or mandatory reporters. Like if you see abuse, then as an ombudsman, if my client tells me that they don't want me to report that, then I can't legally do that. And so confidentiality is absolute background or the backbone. So, sometimes I just have to walk in, and I often do, just, with blinders on, just going to, my destination. I mean, because there are several things that I would like to do differently or to see, and, but also I know that there are a lot of great caregivers out there. I know that. I see them working, and I thank them, because I know that that's not my role or I wouldn't be a strong nursing assistant. I just wouldn't be. But I'm very thankful that we have those folks that is their passion. And so I was going to say I want to leave it for any other questions. Anyone?
And then we'll get wrapped up. I know this is probably like a question that I know that some of my families have reached out. Where can I find these rights at? How do I know my resident rights, my patient rights? Where do I find them? Of course, they should be posted, but sometimes people have no idea where to find those at. Are they online? Are they in the rooms? Are they at the front desk? Where are they at? So do you want to answer where resident rights should be posted at? I think that's very important. Where can I find them at if I want to learn more?
So yeah, they should be posted in every community, every facility, visible for everyone to see, along with several other phone calls or phone numbers rather. And then you certainly can go online to. Do you have that? What were you-
Yeah.
Did you have that?
We've
or-
got them on our website, but
Okay.
they've got them on the state, like, Health and Human Services
Right, yeah, the
Division
Department of Health and
Aging.
Human Services, you
Yeah.
can certainly find
Mhm.
the resident rights. And when you're supposed to have them, they're supposed to be given to you by, by the,
Your
by your
admission,
mission
yeah,
packet, yeah.
So all that's paperwork
Yeah.
that you get is in there. No, but it is supposed to be posted and visible. Most of the time you'll find it like close to the front door, or something like that. And actually the volunteers that go in, we keep posters in our car. And so if we walk in and it's not posted, we can hand them a poster, and it's got the ombudsman contact information at the bottom of it too.
Hi, I might be beating a dead horse here, but this is a real concern. So I know that you said that, per the patient rights, it's illegal to violate those things enumerated there, but not in a nursing home, but in a medical, in a hospital. I actually have had my patient rights violated. And it was, they didn't have any video cameras to corroborate my story. So what ended up happening, and trigger warning, I was essentially abused at the hands of ER staff. I had to just take it, and it was their word against mine. And yeah, like, even though the hospital had patient rights listed, that didn't matter, because according to them, they said that they lied and said that, I was behaving in a certain way,
Right.
and so while this is all well and good,
Sure.
there's there's no guarantee for your safety, mental, physical, or otherwise. So I'm wondering, where this all fits in.
Interestingly, what day are we on? Saturday? I think it was Thursday. I was in a care plan, or I call them concern meetings, where it was oftentimes, it is the word of the resident, or against staff, or versus staff, if you will, and trying to get past that is difficult. So you're looking at the documentation, you're looking at, all kinds of things that may point to otherwise, but ultimately, it does come to that, resident and versus staff. For a hospital situation, I know they have patient advocacies, but patient advocacy also works for the hospital. The other route there I know the Department of Health Service regulations that seem to regulate everything. They also regulate hospitals, so that might be a where you can, if that were to happen again, that would be an entity to contact. But yeah, I mean, that is certainly something that we have struggled with, because again, the conversations that I've been in, the tendency is, seems to be to lean towards, what's documented, and what what the staff has said. And so in those particular situations, I try to say but this is what she's saying, this is what he's saying. So we really need to take a look at that.
Just from just another angle on this, and I'm putting my old, long time ago hat on as a magistrate, is the criminality, within facilities, it still applies. So just don't think if it happens in a hospital or happens in a nursing home that criminality is excused. You still have capabilities to report through law enforcement. And those are rights that are maintained. So those don't automatically go away no matter if it's in a care community or a hospital. So those are additional. I mean, I had those all the time back in my magistrate days. Patients and providers if something was criminal. So just nothing relieves, provides that oversight. Even if something's in a care community, it's at a doctor and it's criminal, that still can lead to legal action that way.
100%. And as a matter of fact, I'm be heading next week to meet with a family who has made a report, and so I'm going to see how else I can help. Anyway.
Okay. Well, we are running a little late, and we do not want to miss out on the fun downstairs. This is the raffle, my favorite part of the day. So if you guys do have any more questions or have anything, please feel free to find us. But thank you guys for presenting and sharing. And anything that you guys need help with, please find us, discuss with us. But thank you for attending.